like to call the order the Plan Commission meeting for May 4th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Attendance roll call.
Commissioner Croft.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
Alderman Madden.
Here.
Commissioner Gazana. Commissioner Buckmaster.
Here.
Commissioner Bartlett. Mayor Pefalski.
Present.
Planner Trizbutowski.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you. Statement of public notice.
The agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on Friday, April 30th.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from April 7th.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Consent business. Resolution PC 025-2021, approval of a metal roof accessory structure for Tonya Butkovic, located at South 70 West 16670 Hedgewood Drive. Resolution PC 026-2021, approval of a two-lot certified survey map for Richard Knudsen, located at West 192 South 6647 Hillendale Drive. Resolution PC 029-2021, approval of a second accessory structure located at West 138 South 7119 Sherwood Circle. And Resolution PC 030-2021, approval of a metal roof accessory structure for the Matson residence located at West 191 South 7436 Richdorf Drive.
Move to approve and gross.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business for consideration. Resolution PC 023-2021, recommendation to the Common Council to rezone property from RC2 Rural Country Estates to PD Planned Development for Carrick Homes Incorporated, located at Pregal Drive and Durham Drive, tax keys numbers 2211.996.002 and 2211.997. Someone make the
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So this item, the first item, this item and the next item are both relating to the same project, which is Mallard Point, a new subdivision proposed on the May property. May property is located on the corner of Pregal and Durham. So this first item is a rezoning request from RC2 Country Residence in Shoreland Wetland District to a planned development district, and that planned development is based upon the RS2 suburban residence zoning and the Shoreland Wetland District. The proposal had a public hearing that was last Tuesday. At the public hearing, no one spoke with any kind of comments. There were, though, 2 email comments that were sent to the city and the mayor, and those were forwarded to the aldermen and women, and they are also in front of you tonight. The comments in general, one of them more so relates to items like just keeping the speeds down, protecting people that are using the park that's along Pregal Drive, making sure people can still walk in the area. Want to make sure everything will be safe for people that are in that area of the park. And then the other comment related to kind of just questioning as far as a planned development and why a planned development zoning is needed on the property. Why are developers getting things changed that other owners might not, and why can't they just keep the existing RS2 zoning? As far as the overall project goes, the proposal with that rezoning and the plan development, the plan does meet the existing comprehensive plan designation for that area. So the comprehensive plan currently calls out low-density residential, which says up to 0.99 units per acre. The proposal that's in front of us is for 0.989 units per acre, so just under that limit. It's for a total of 45 single-family lots and 5 outlots in a total of a 45.5-acre property. So the western portion of the property is wetland and floodplain, which remain untouched. And then the eastern, about 2/3 or so, would be what would be developed as part of this potential future subdivision. As part of the development, there would be 3 roads into development, 1 from Durham and 2 stemming from Priegel. As far as the plan development goes, like we said, they're asking for a base zoning of RS2, which all plan developments need a base zoning. They are not asking to change the minimum lot size. So the RS2 requires 20,000 square feet. They're asking to keep that as is. What they are asking for is the RS2 normally requires 110 feet in width for average minimum width. They're asking that to go down to 100. And then front setback is typically 40 feet, and they're asking that to go down to 30. The side offsets are typically 15 and 20, 1 on each side, and they're asking to have 15 on each side. And they're asking the rear offset, which would normally be 20 feet, to be increased to 25 feet. And the reason they're asking for the reduced side yard setbacks is just because the width is a little bit narrower. Otherwise, the applicant is not asking for any type of density bonus under the plan development. That is something the code could allow, but has not been asked for in this scenario. So this rezoning approval would be subject to a final plat approval, which is something that has to come down the road if this does go forward.
Questions or comments?
At this point, we're just deciding whether we're going to recommend the zoning change.
Correct. The zoning change.
Because there's really 2 parts to this, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just the zoning change part, a recommendation to the Common Council, which it's had its first reading. Next council meeting, it will have its second reading at that point. Upon approval of that, then that's when the zoning and the technical approvals from staff and all that. But that's where the real change is. So.
How do the setback requests, change requests come into play with that? Is that a second part?
No, I mean, so if this would get approved ultimately, if the recommendation is positive from Plan Commission and if council would approve it next week, that is their constraints. Yeah, this is what makes those decisions. Yeah. And what they're asking for compared to typical, I mean, some plan developments ask for waivers of these, some don't. Visually, you're not going to know that's the difference of 100 to 110 foot lot. You're not going to know that's the difference of a total of 30 foot offsets to 35 foot. Visually, it's not going to appear any different. Like I said, because they're keeping that western part untouched, which they really need to because of the wetland and floodplain. I think they just needed to kind of compress the lots to fit in the area they did have to work with. Hence why that 10-foot width reduction was asked for by the applicant.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to Resolution PC 024-2021, approval of a preliminary plat for Mallard Point subdivision located at Priegel Drive and Durham Drive. This is the preliminary plat approval for the previous agenda item with the rezoning.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
There's really nothing else to add on this one. I mean, unless anyone has questions. Like I said, 45 lots, 5 outlots. There were some proposals for this development previously by Town Realty. One was for 38 lot subdivision. One was for a 49. Neither of them went forward because of some comp plan issues and not getting enough land mass. Like I said, what's there now does comply with the comprehensive plan. And the biggest thing to note on this is that the review and the approval of everything is subject to the technical review, which is being done as we speak by our engineers.
Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously as well. Moving on to Resolution PC 027-2021, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Jennifer Helverson of Tailspin Bar and Grill located at South 64 West 18295 Martin Drive.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So Tailspin Bar and Grill seeking a site plan amendment to have some permanent outdoor seating on the southern side of their existing business located on Martin and Jewelcrest. Back in July of last year, they did obtain a staff permit approval for temporary outdoor seating, which was something the city allowed on a temporary basis last summer for COVID purposes, just to allow people to kind of spread out a little bit more outside. And now they're asking to keep that as permanent seating. So the submittal is included in the packet. It's very similar to what's been out there. So if you've seen what's out there over the last summer or early this year, it's the same kind of thing. Tables and stuff, they are working with the clerk's office and common council ultimately for outdoor liquor license approval and, having approval for music outside at certain hours. So that's already being handled by that group there. Otherwise, staff doesn't have any really concerns. We just note if there's any kind of new signage, new lighting, they would need to come back to us. As long as they're doing all their proper approvals through the clerk's office and common council for the outdoor dance music and liquor licenses, usually that's not a concern of the planning commission. So staff was recommending approval, especially since we had no issues with what was out there last year.
Questions, comments?
This is a temporary, or not a temporary, this is moving from COVID grace to permanent.
Yeah, the COVID stuff didn't have to come through plan. We discussed and it was just staff. Would be indefinite for lack of a better term.
Yeah, no, that's fine. From a kind of an upgrade perspective, that's being evaluated as well? I mean, I haven't been on the property, and in fact, I couldn't quite understand the drawing, but.
The petitioner's here if you have questions.
Yeah,
Jennifer?
so, I mean, please describe what's there now. I'm
Jennifer,
sorry,
John, if one of you two want to come up to the microphone. The mic, it might need to be turned on. Oh, that's on, all right.
All right. She's having a little issue talking, so
Okay.
I figured.
If you could just, tell us what the layout, I mean, I see it drawn here in the hand drawing, but what's intended, is there improvements going to be made?
Well, there's discussion about concrete patio as opposed to some of the gravel that exists now and was in existence last year. But I mean, that's really what we're looking at is those tables and seating. I don't know what other.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the area now is concrete. If you look at the aerial photograph, which is just a couple pages ahead in the packet, some of it is concrete, some of it is kind of gravel out there now. So they're not adding anything beyond what's out there today, surface-wise.
For the most part, where you guys are putting tables and stuff like that, that's that paved area anyway, isn't it?
For the most part, we did have some tables on the gravel, but
Okay.
the gravel is really packed, and I mean, you can walk on it. You're not kicking stones around or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It just sounds like it's underwhelming relative to some of the other things we've done, form outdoor venues. Maybe I need to go see it myself. I apologize for not, I couldn't quite understand it, but I kind of see the layout here better now.
Yeah, I because all the detail is like where the tables are.
Right.
When you're looking at it, you're trying to figure out where's the building. Well,
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out where the
Yeah.
roads were, so
So this little light area up here is actually the building.
right.
I'll throw one thing out that we've done in a couple other cases. There are some other businesses that have done outdoor seating that kind of started really basic, and the Plan Commission kind of wanted to see where they could go with it. You could have a 1-year re-review just to see if maybe they're, kind of giving a little more of a permanent trial run. And trial is in trial from like, at that point, do you see how it wears, and do you maybe want them to put concrete in the rest or asphalt? I don't know. That's just not something we have to do, but it has been something that has been done in the past.
I can tell you from at least my point, and I'm guessing might be where Commissioner Groff's getting at. You're starting at one level. We don't want you to start here and then have it deteriorate and getting down. We'd actually like to see you, take this and turn it into something and maybe improve the property so it looks nicer. So,
Absolutely.
the type of thing. So,
And to your point, Adam, I think that's a fantastic idea. We want you to succeed. We want to be pro-business, at least I do. And yet at the same time, seconding what the mayor says, looking at the outside and saying, hey, this is where we are now. It's not going so well. It's starting to deteriorate. Then we're back to saying, are we going to be able to keep it up? Make it look appropriate, be fully functional, obviously. But so my recommendation is to put a 1-year review in, and hopefully you'll be able to come back and say, yeah, it was really a success, and we'll pad the rest and do some other upgrades.
Right.
So are you making that motion?
I am making that motion.
Is anyone seconding that?
Second that motion.
Discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none, all in favor of amending the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the motion is sitting in front of us as amended. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to resolution PC 028-2021, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Andrew Jacobson of Lucky's at the Lodge located at South 74 West 17096 Janesville Road.
I'll second.
All right. So this was another example similar to the last one of last year. Lucky's at the Lodge did ask to do on a short-term basis a tent on the side of the property. It would be the west side of the building along some of the parking stalls. I think last year it was a similar size tent, but I think they actually broke it into 2 tents to make it one big size. It's kind of irrelevant. So they did have this there for a period last year due to the COVID kind of precautions that we allowed outdoors. And now they're again asking to allow this for pretty much the entire summer season. It wouldn't stay up obviously over the winter, but it wouldn't be taken down and put up every couple weeks or whatever. They are planning different events and music and stuff that they've been working with our clerk's office and the Common Council on for their outdoor dance permit license and liquor license. As long as the tent itself doesn't exceed the parking stalls and doesn't impede at all into the drive aisle, because there are minimum drive aisle requirements for planning and fire sake. So as long as the sizes are what they propose, that shouldn't be an issue at all. As far as parking goes, there is quite a bit of parking on site, and when this tent would probably be busiest is when the other businesses in this center are least busy, as well as there is kind of an auxiliary parking area kind of just northeast of the building that was planned for a future building, but just nothing's panned out there yet, so there's parking options there. And then as a worst case scenario, there also is some parking options parallel to the first Parkland building along Lannon, but don't think that's been a need for that up to this point. But staff was recommending approval as long as that parking aisle isn't obstructed. We do note in the resolution that this is a 1-year approval. We just think, once again, because it's something new and they're doing it throughout the whole summer, just want to make sure that made it in there. But I think that's how we worded it. Yeah, any subsequent years would need a separate BSO approval. So it's kind of a 2021 approval per se. And if this year goes well and it's something they want to consider for the future and maybe even do it in some upgraded fashion, like you mentioned on the road, that's a choice they can make, but it would allow them to do it through this entire calendar year.
Questions, comments? Sure. At the microphone, though.
Name right, serial number?
I think we know Alderman.
All right, Kevin Kubaki, Alderman, 6th
Alderman
District.
Kubaki.
I have one concern, and that is, I took a look at it today. Where the tent lies, it's a driveway. People will be crossing that driveway from the door back and forth. Isn't there a more appropriate place to put that where people aren't crossing a traffic lane? Because people do come around there. The traffic lane is between the building and the tent.
Oh, you mean the people are going to be walking
Yep.
into the traffic lane?
And people are coming out of a blind corner from the back. That's my only concern. I just want to share that.
To Kevin's point, I was there last year and that was not an issue because people were very cautious and they had many employees out there making sure that safety was a priority, and everybody was out there. A lot of it was walk traffic, so there wasn't as many cars driving anyway. And they do have ingress egress from both sides of the building. So a lot of the traffic was coming from the east side, not from the west side, because it was the crowd over there. So I think it was self-contained, and everybody was very safe.
I'll echo that. I spent plenty of time in that tent. Same thing. So I would echo that same thing. I thought it was well policed, and all respect to the alderman. It just seems to not be an issue. So.
It is a one-year approval also, so I guess if, Chris gets knocked over walking out of the tent this summer, we'll amend it.
And this, the hard part about the site is it's surrounded by a drive aisle, unfortunately.
Yeah, the
So,
whole building is.
if you were to say what's a spot number 2 that's safer, I don't know if we would have a good answer, unfortunately.
Any other further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to Resolution PC 031-2021, approval of a building site and operation plan amendment for Pops Marketplace located at South 70 West 16050 Janesville Road.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, this item is kind of continuation of activities that Pops Marketplace asked for last year. Last summer more specifically, was kind of the first year that Mark over at Pops was putting together, outdoor activities, different things from farmers markets to food truck events, mini markets. I think he wanted to do some music. We kind of gave him, he had approval to do that last year, and it was written that, he had to come back this year just to see, how things went and if he wanted to change or expand anything. So it was another good example of a one-year thing to kind of give it a trial run. I know in the planning department, we didn't ever hear of any issues. This year he's pretty much proposing the same kind of stuff. And the way the approval is written and proposed, it would kind of give them a certain amount of free reign, and I want to say free reign is not as in wild free reign, but as long as he keeps the events kind of in that same scale, like he's mentioned, like the mini markets, the food truck thing here and there, music, those are all things that we didn't have an issue with as long as they follow certain parameters. For example, don't set up stuff in the parking area so the parking area can be maintained for parking, keeping the food trucks in some of the mulched areas just so they're not rutting anything up. And once again, not obstructing any kind of parking. On the planning end, we did not hear any kind of issues or complaints or anything in the past. We've only heard positive things at that, and it seems just by how the business has improved there that the community's received it very well at the same. One of the things that was kind of talked about previously related to parking. The parking lot itself, has a pretty good amount of parking for daily use when there aren't, kind of special activities going on. I've been there a handful of times myself where parking was not an issue at different times of the day. And that's one thing I think the operator has acknowledged the same thing. When there are bigger events, there is need for more parking, hence that grass area. And that grass area kind of has a nice kind of even though its grass is pretty packed down because even with the previous farm uses was always used for parking. And that has pretty much been okay. I know the operator would love to try to upgrade that, but him and the landowner have to kind of figure some details with that out. So that's still something that might happen down the road. One thing that was talked about was like portable toilets being used, and we didn't hear any issues with that. So we don't foresee any issues at this time. But so the way that the approval is written is that that if this approval is specifically for Pops Marketplace, and that if a different operator were to come in and try to do either the same thing or something different, because we kind of know how it's been run as Pops, and we know that they kind of get what the Plan Commission expects, that this approval would have to be resought by somebody else if that were the route that they were going to go. I just want to check one thing. Aaron, is there a time frame on this one? Do we do?
It's an annual, isn't it? Just a 1 year?
Yeah, I think what I want to double check was to see if it was a.
Well, he's looking that up. I also should note that for special events, he does have an agreement with ProHealth, and he's used it before for overflow parking right next door, which actually tends to work out a little better because it's paved. And
yeah, I think this was meant to be kind of a an ongoing thing in that, like, with for Pop specifically as a business, because last year went without issues. There are some conditions noting, like, the parking boundary should be clearly marked or taped off or something, so people know where's parking and what isn't. There's some notes that if the lack of parking or off-site parking ever does become an issue, that Plan Commission would have the ability to re-review it. There's notes that if noise ever becomes an issue, which it is not because of music, that Plan Commission would have to relook at it, and or possibly the Common Council and Clerk's office. If there's any refuse containers, they may have to be enclosed down the road, depending on where they're stored. But it isn't listed as a specific time frame for approval as long as it's operated by the current operator in the current use.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Moving on to miscellaneous business.
All right, so as you see the agendas, you've probably seen lately that there's been a ton of outbuildings on the agenda. I think part of it is people maybe, spending less money on travel or something with COVID, maybe, and are doing things like putting money into their property. And we're seeing record numbers of permits. And on that note, we're seeing a lot more buildings that are having metal roofs. The way the ordinance reads currently and has read since I've been here is that any outbuilding materials and colors should be similar to that of the main residence or the home. So if your house has gray shingles, you should have gray shingles on your outbuilding. And if it has tan siding, you should have some kind of tan siding. That kind of stems from the idea of not all neighborhoods, it would probably be appropriate to have a metal pole building. It's obviously right in the right area and the right space, but not everywhere. And I think a lot of people, when they think of little metal sheds, think of these old little tin sheds people used to have that after, a couple nicks or dings and a couple rainstorms and a couple seasons, they're getting all rusty. Well, I think the idea of metal as a use on roofing material has become extremely popular. One, because a lot of times their warranties and durability are higher than that of shingles even sometimes. We've had a few people ask for them because they're in heavily wooded areas and the shingles don't do well in shaded areas, especially with a lot of debris. So they want that metal also, as well as the popularity of places like Costco and stuff. I think Aaron and I get a couple calls a week with people asking for metal roof Costco pergolas. It's literally it's a joke running in the office because we get so many requests for them. So what it caused us to do, and talking with the mayor, basically saying, should we relook at, and we'll start it as maybe more of a policy, and if it works well, codified eventually, to basically say, setting some parameters that if someone's doing a certain smaller size structure, that if they want a metal roof, and as long as the color still matches, that maybe it can just be approved as a building permit. Rather than having to come to Plan Commission, they're typically consent anyway. I don't think the Plan Commission has ever denied a smaller structure. Larger ones, we talk a little bit more about sometimes. So some possible guidelines that staff suggested was if somebody wanted to come in with a metal roof structure, so whether it's deemed a shed, an outbuilding, a pergola, a gazebo, call it what you want. And we were suggesting a size limit of 225 square feet. So that's basically, we were using the idea of like a 15 by 15, which is kind of a lot of the pergolas we see, which are most common, or the sheds are usually under that size.
12 by 10.
The idea is trying to think, we're not intending for a one-car garage to automatically just be allowed to put a metal roof on, even though they can still come here for a waiver, but setting that limit at what, most of the things we see are, which are, those smaller sheds or like the pergolas are the real popular ones right now. And so if someone came in, they would still need a building permit, still should be matching color, but they wouldn't have to go through the process of coming here. Saves them some time, saves them $100 submittal fee. So just trying to be accommodating to the residents. As part of it, though, one thing we would want to kind of keep as a note is that there are some of these metal carport structures, and I did include some photos that you guys have in front of you, and I kind of give some of these examples. The top one shows a pergola example that we've seen in front of us before. The second example is a typical shed or outbuilding, one example that has a metal roof, and you can see it aesthetically looks pretty nice. And the last one is the carport. The carport ones on the bottom have something that you might see them in the city, but they're definitely not approved. A few of them have come to Plan Commission, but the few that have, not all of them have been approved. I think you'll probably argue aesthetically they might not look as nice as some of the other items. We still feel that if somebody wants to do one of those legally, they should still be coming to the Plan Commission, that we're not going to exempt regardless of size. And that if someone wants to do a typical pole barn that has, metal sides, metal roof of any size, that would still come to plan. So the only ones that really would not be coming would be, non-metal sided, smaller buildings and those pergolas. And another thing Aaron put together was we kind of looked through, I'll quickly jump to another topic. Another part of this topic is the idea of the number of buildings. The ordinance says everyone's allowed one garden shed, which is a 120 square foot building or less, and everybody's allowed an outbuilding, which is basically anything over 120 square feet. And there's a total cap based upon lot size and house size, but you're allowed one of each. And if somebody already has one shed but wants to have another shed for some reason, maybe one's a lawnmower and one they want to be a little pool cabana or something, right now they have to come to Plan Commission for that, even though they're still under the total size limit. And we've had a lot of those lately also, which I feel kind of just put a lot of extra stuff on Plan Commission that maybe they don't need to see. So the other proposal would be basically allowing what Aaron and I kind of call 2-in-1. The idea that you can pick 2 buildings from any one of those categories and 1 from the other, so a total of 3 without needing Plan Commission approval. You still have to keep your maximum size limit, so they're not allowed any more total space than anybody else, or than they would have before. It's just they're allowed to do it without having to come here. So if they want 2 garden sheds and a detached garage, that would be allowable by right. If they want to do one garden shed and maybe 1 more medium-sized building and then detached garage, which would mean 2 in the bigger category, that would be all right. Boathouses, which are allowable in certain districts now, would still count the same. They still would count as one of those 3 buildings. So we think that this would be kind of a good compromise, that it could make it easier for a handful of owners. And there's still going to be some that have to come here for one reason or another, but it could weed a handful out. So then what we did is we put together a quick list of, over the past 3 years, how many things would have not had to come here then. So this year so far, we're only 4 months in, and we would have eliminated 6 out of 8 things coming in front of you. So that would have been 6 other residents that got their permit that much quicker. That just shows you the trend. If we're only 4 months in and there's that many, and how these metal roofs are becoming more popular, or these third buildings. In 2020, we had 12 requests total. 6 of them would have been able to been done at the staff level. So we would have cut out half of them. 2019, we only would have really probably cut out 1, but that's just the nature. There were a lot of bigger pole buildings, and I think the metal is becoming more and more popular recently, and that shows that. So that's kind of our suggested proposal as far as just making more of a Plan Commission policy, and kind of start with that and maybe see over the next 6 months or year how that goes. Maybe if this doesn't quite achieve what we want, we bring this topic back up, or maybe if it works as good as we hope, maybe we codify it at some point with some future code changes.
Comments, feedback?
Just a question on the setbacks. How would that affect any setbacks from the property line?
It wouldn't. So the setbacks are based upon size. If you fall into that smaller category, the 120 square feet, you're typically 3 or 5 feet from the lot lines, depending upon your height. That wouldn't change. Okay. And separation between buildings is always 5 feet. That wouldn't change. And then for the bigger buildings, it varies depending on your zoning district. That wouldn't change. So it doesn't change any location. It's strictly a quantity or what it looks like.
Really the big change is it's just not coming in front of us. I mean, we're still following all our guidelines and rules and everything else.
And the thing that we brought it up for is it would be one thing if the Plan Commission was, you didn't like a lot of them, we're denying them, but by the amount of approvals we've given, like I said, over almost 30 in 3 years, it shows that it's not a huge issue. So why not be a little more accommodating?
And really the big thing is it's saving everyone $100 on their permit for it. So they're paying $100.
So with metal roofs, I'm fully in agreement, by the way. So from a metal roof standpoint, knowing that you can get close, color match, you can argue the how close is sufficient. That still would be a topic if somebody wanted to go into a different direction on color.
Yeah, I mean, if someone had a black roof and they want a red roof, something that's clearly not close match, even slightly, I would think we would send it still here. Now, that's something we can talk about, because like I said, the idea of some buildings still coming here will happen because of their size or metal walls. Right. I guess that's a question.
The reason I bring that up is metal offers a totally different palette of colors than shingles. Mm-hmm. You don't have that many choices, and you really do with metal. So as long as that forces a decision, I don't expect that many of them.
If it's close, we're pretty flexible on that. But yeah, if it's like I said, night and day difference, we would tell them they have to come here like they would have before for those unique scenarios.
Until we start seeing a pattern of you guys not doing anything with those either. I mean,
right. You're right.
I mean, the idea of putting things on consent agenda for you, just to put it on for consent agenda,
right,
as a diminished value as well. Mm-hmm. All right. Any other comments? Adam, you got direction on that? Yeah. And so what we'll do is maybe we'll kind of just put together some kind of written policy that just Aaron and I can use as being uniform with enforcement of it, and just pass it along when we have it. Just We can put together as a resolution that they approve. You put your policy, we'll just pass a resolution.
Okay.
And that there's
Sure.
something kind of pointing back, so you at least have some history on it. In the
Yeah,
future, they're wondering why this stuff's not coming through.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, we'll put that together for the next meeting.
All right.
And then one other topic that I briefly talked to the mayor about was kind of our calendar of meetings. We meet the first Tuesday of each month, and when we plan each calendar for each year, we typically don't schedule upfront a January or a July meeting. Usually it has to do with relation to holidays, and people on vacation, whatever. So I guess one of the questions is we don't have a scheduled July meeting right now. And I know I'm not knowing what the board schedules, but knowing between the mayor and staff and stuff, July is all over the place with people's vacations and whatnot. The question is, do we keep it that way? Do we look to maybe schedule something a little bit later in the month instead of the first Tuesday? Do we just say go to August? I've been talking to a few people that are debating doing things. I've been giving them a suggestion, plan for August. Maybe something happens early, but plan for the worst at August. A couple of them have said, hey, well, if you have a July, I'm definitely interested. But they know that may or may not be an option. It's just the question of if we have it, when would it work for enough people here? If we have it at all. We don't always have a July, though.
Of the ones you've talked to, how many of the previous approval we just gave you does that eliminate? Were there people that were going to come here because of these things that?
No, none of them were able to get in for this meeting anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyone want a July meeting or not?
To me, it's about, a little bit about serving the community and the development. I really don't like to necessarily see us always putting everyone off a whole month. It's already bad enough. I'm on the other side of the table a lot. And the approval process in general is becoming way longer than it takes to build something. And that's a government issue. It's not what we're going to solve here tonight. But for me, this is just another one of those things. It's like, okay, now I wait another month. So I like to have the meetings if we have a reason to have a meeting. I think we should be accommodating rather than putting somebody off 2 months. But that's my take on it.
No, I'm cognizant of what you're saying on that. I don't want to, displace people that are trying to get things done and, better their homes and community and their businesses. Typically, this would fall in that week between 4th of July and, that following weekend, big vacation weekend. So I think that week would just be difficult to do. So I think the best we could do would be maybe push it off where the next week is council. So we'd either have to do it on an off Tuesday night or push it off another week and have it towards the end of the month. And then if we do that, we'd have to push back. I would push back the August one then a little bit too. So they're staggered a little bit. So you don't have them like a week apart, that type of thing. So, that's our options. I guess the other thing is where are you at for people that would be coming forward? Is this something that?
I'm talking to one group that would maybe be doing a rezoning. So that's what we need to know from the standpoint of like public hearing stuff. And I have someone else that's looking at a conditional use grant, possibly. Like I said, nothing has been turned in yet. It's not like they're turned in and they're hoping to get on that one. The conversations today have been when would I need to turn something in, so I can't even guarantee that those will pan out or not.
And then just thinking if it's a rezoning, if it's bigger project, I don't know the difference between July or August is going to make a difference from a construction season or anything like that on there, because it's probably something that's going to move forward more in the off season. And just a thought.
Due to voting, we had to move one of our meetings to a Wednesday night. So my recommendation would be do the Wednesday following the July 4th weekend. Instead of waiting 2 weeks and going to the end of the month, we could do a Wednesday, or Thursday the following week rather than a Tuesday if the chambers are being used. So
like the Tuesday, right now Tuesday's the 6th.
So it would be.
So the 14th?
14th. Is that the 14th?
14th is a Wednesday.
Yeah. So why don't do you want to have that one just penciled in and based on these two things he's talking about, they may not come forward and I don't want to have a meeting.
Yeah, tentatively sounds.
Well, what Aaron and I can do is we can figure out the publication and public notice schedule to say, okay, if we were to have it, where would that put us from a submittal requirement? And then basically tell people, hey, if we get stuff in for this one, yes, we're going to have it. And if we don't, we're not. And I guess I'm thinking more bigger stuff. Is that correct answer? Anything. What if we just have a shed or a pole barn? I guess that's the question. Does that change anything or not?
don't you give us some leeway and we'll let you know if we're going to
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds reasonable. I mean, isn't it really about, we could call a meeting really at any time if there was,
4 hours notice.
Yeah, the hard part is the, like,
public notice.
The items that I'm talking about is,
Staff
yeah.
time.
Yep, I get it. No, I get it.
We will be shorthanded in July, and we typically are, because that's when,
Yeah.
this is our planning staff right here. So, one of them's gone, half the department's gone.
Yeah, and like I said, yeah, the two ones that were most questioning or asking about it were ones that have quite a bit of lead time. So, I mean, yeah, I would know pretty far in advance if they're gonna want to be on it or not. So we'll kind of tentatively maybe plan that 14th,
14th.
and then see where it goes from there.
We should be able to let you know in the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, I think the submittal would be in about 2 weeks or so.
All right. Thank you for all that input. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 6:40. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.